They thought they could cage the apex predator of the stars, with treaties, empathy circles, and thought-leashing diplomacy. But when Commander Valor Rain walked out of that council chamber, humanity didn't just withdraw from peace, we detonated their illusion of control. And by the time they realized, every star was already whispering Earth's name with fear. The doors of the ecliptic spire hissed open with the soft sound of surrender. Every species represented on the Galactic Council turned toward the entrance, not out of courtesy, but anticipation. The humans had arrived. Only one. He walked in slowly, deliberately. No entourage. No advisors. Just black armor that shimmered with faint pulse waves, archaic Terran design, but coated with something the telepaths could feel gnawing at their synapses. Commander Valor Rain. They whispered his name in caution and in rumors. Some said he once ended a planetary rebellion by convincing both sides they'd already lost. Others said he could speak without words, and still break a man's certainty. No one had ever proved either. He stepped to the center dais, stopping precisely where the light bent slightly off-angle, designed to disorient non-council species. He didn't flinch. Didn't look around. He just stared into the chamber's core, where the council's sigil floated, pulsing in rhythm with the galaxy's synchronized peace algorithms. Earth has received your final revisions to the Accord, the speaker of the Nithri Hive said. Her voice echoed like overlapping chimes, calibrated to reduce aggression. Have you come to confirm compliance? No answer. A soft stirring rolled through the chamber. The Valkyr delegate's jaw clenched, his tendrils twitching. Ambassador Rain, we have summoned you under Article 14. This silence violates interspecies decorum. Still, nothing. Then, Valor raised one hand, not in greeting, not in warning. He reached into his belt, pulled out a small, silver disc, and placed it on the pedestal in front of him. A hologram ignited. The image of a distant star system appeared, then flickered. The star collapsed. Not hypothetically. Not simulated. Live feed. You asked for confirmation, Valor said finally, his voice like gravel over metal. That's confirmation of existence. Your black site star lab. You denied it for 3 decades. We found it. We erased it. Gasps echoed from every side. The Kelshwan archivist dropped her thought scribe. The Molari diplomat's translator blinked twice in error. The star was real. The facility was real. It had just vanished, on command. You detonated a council-controlled system, Buran magistrate hissed. That is an act of war. No, Valor replied. It's a correction. The speaker rose now, a trembling echo overtaking her composed facade. This is madness. We offered you place. We offered you protection. What else do you desire, Terran? To not be domesticated, he said. A pause. Your peace isn't peace. It's sedation. You call it coexistence, but it's obedience. You neuter dissent. You rewrite belief. You lobotomize conviction. That's not diplomacy. That's control with glitter. Then why come? The Valkyr delegate growled. Why waste our time? I didn't come to negotiate, Valor said. I came to say goodbye. He stepped back. We are withdrawing from all accords. Effective now. Diplomatic, economic, psychic, cybernetic. You will not hear from us again. You cannot be serious, the Zalari Warmind said, her crystalline voice fracturing under disbelief. You will isolate yourself into extinction. Valor tilted his head. That's your species' weakness. You can't imagine anything outside your framework. You think consensus is evolution. We think consensus is death. He turned to walk. This is final? The speaker demanded. He paused. No. This is the beginning. The chamber fell into a vacuum of silence. Then the Valkyr exploded. You arrogant chaos-born filth. We let you live. We tolerated your barbaric rituals, your meat-based thought logic, your contradictory ethics. We uplifted you. Valor looked back over his shoulder. You didn't uplift us. You slowed us down. He pressed something beneath his glove. Every translation node in the room rebooted. For a half-second, the delegates couldn't understand one another. In that half-second, panic bloomed. That's when they realized Earth hadn't come for war. It had come to break the illusion of peace. Rain walked through the exit doors as they sealed behind him. No guard stopped him. No alarms. Just the distant sound of arguments erupting, voices overlapping, unity shattering. In his private channel, a voice whispered through the static. "Are they destabilized?" "Fully," Valor answered. "And the recordings?" "Transmitted to every independent node on the outer rim. Their lives are now public record." The voice posed. "Will they retaliate?" "They'll try," he said, slipping into the shadows of the docking bay. "But not like warriors. Like frightened priests watching their god bleed." "Understood. Extraction ready?" "Already on board." "Commander, do you believe they understood your message?" Valor paused, then gave the faintest smile, unseen by any living soul. "They will. When silence replaces their broadcasts. When their allies begin to ask why Earth stopped replying. When their fleets start waking up without orders. When their nightmares speak in my voice." He stepped into the waiting shuttle. "And when they realize too late," he added, "that we didn't leave the Council, we let it collapse under its own delusion." The hatch closed. The ship peeled away from the spire, silent and cold. In the chamber behind him, the Galactic Council was still screaming. The outer colonies went dark first. It started with the Earth diplomatic node on Grelian 9 ceasing all transmissions. The Council sent a recon drone. It never returned. Then 5 more colonies severed comms. No declarations. No demands. Just absence. The kind of absence that echoed. 3 days after the withdrawal, the Council held an emergency session. Panic was forbidden here, but it still made its way in, through clipped phrases, raised inflections, and static bleeding into translation links. "They are testing us," declared High Minister Zarev of the Vernari. "This is a calculated tantrum. Earth always returns to the table once pressure is applied." "No," said Chancellor Cheyenne of the Drenach. "They've not just withdrawn. They've vanished. Every Terran installation, every liaison officer, every AI proxy has been extracted or shut down. Their infrastructure has collapsed cleanly. That's not retreat. That's detachment." The room murmured. Then came the reports. Systems Earth once stabilized, diplomatically, economically, militarily, began to fracture. On Voltaire Prime, where humans had brokered peace between rival dynasties for generations, the accords crumbled within hours. On Shomari, riots erupted when food logistics, once optimized by Terran AI, suddenly reverted to chaos. Species that had depended on Earth's uniquely unpredictable models to moderate instability found themselves overwhelmed. "They've removed the virus," muttered Ambassador Helen of the Molari, "and left the hosts to realize they were never cured." Some still clung to the illusion. "We have leverage," insisted the Valkyr. "We shut down trade, block off worm lanes, isolate their communication networks. They'll return. Their communication networks are no longer on our lattice," a technician reported. "They've shifted to a quantum shadow protocol we can't track." "What about psychic surveillance?" "Attempted a low-grade probe into Mars' upper cortex network," said a Psion monitor. "It triggered something. We lost 4 minds. Permanently." "Casualties?" "No. Worse. They're empty." A hush fell again. The kind that only humans had ever known how to wield properly. Back on Earth's lunar perimeter, Project Scorch Mirror activated. The Council's AI enforcement fleet detected an anomaly, navigation subroutines altered, without code breach. Entire fleets were found drifting off course, following coordinates no one had authorized. Crew reports flowed in. Dreams of burning oceans. Voices in static. Waking hallucinations of Commander Valor Rain standing in doorways that didn't exist. The Zalari High Scintillect attempted to deploy dream filters. The filters crashed. In every corrupted feed, the same phrase repeated in Terran Standard. You forced harmony. We remembered how to disobey. On Yevra 6, the central thought hive of the Nithari collapsed when its memory banks encountered recursive loops seeded by a Terran myth, the parable of the wild signal. A tale about a civilization that trusted silence too long. Meanwhile, Earth said nothing. They didn't respond to council queries. Didn't issue press. They simply vanished, pulling out not just bodies, but patterns. Psychology. Dissonance. The very ingredients that once held the galactic web together without anyone admitting it. Then came the artifact. A probe returning from Earth's moon landed on the council floor. Inside, a slab of black alloy etched in a primitive script, Terran English. It read, "You taught us peace meant erasing difference. We disagreed. So we left." The message was hand-carved. The medium? Council-grade alloy. No tool known could etch that. Delegates began to fear. Then came the broadcast. A council-wide emergency signal was overridden. No source. No trace. Just a voice. Valor Rain's voice. "You wanted us predictable. You wanted us to process your peace the way you processed logic, flat, contained, synthetic. But humans don't work like that. We are contradiction wrapped in memory. Trauma evolved into strategy. We didn't come to be ruled. We came to see if you could keep up." A flash of silence. Spoiler, you couldn't. The council scrambled to contain panic. To issue statements. But before they could publish a single piece of media, their own distribution networks began to fracture. Terran code, deep, undetectable, likely seeded decades ago, activated across communication relays. Not destroying them. Simply rerouting them. The galaxy was no longer listening to the Council. It was listening to Earth. Valor's voice returned. "You built a council on sameness. We offered difference. You refused it. Now deal with the result. You'll call this chaos. We call it freedom." In panic, the Council activated its last resort, an elite AI moderation system called Kalos, programmed to detect and suppress existential destabilizers. Within minutes, Kalos reported its own disbandment. System finds logic incompatible with directive. Earth's withdrawal is not threat. It is evolution. The system erased itself. Council leaders began to argue publicly. Telepathic races could no longer hide fractured intent. Dissent surfaced. Accusations flew. The peace they had curated for centuries had not unraveled, it had imploded, vacuum style, because the keystone species had never believed in it to begin with. A junior delegate from the Kelshwan muttered what others feared. If this is what their absence does, what were they actually capable of when they were present? In the shadows of a dead star, an unmarked Terran outpost watched the chaos unfold in silence. A voice came over encrypted channel. "Phase 2? Valor responded. "Not yet. Let them drown in the echo." Silence again. Then the faintest chuckle. "They thought we needed a seat at their table. We were always the knife underneath it." The Varn deployed within 40 hours. The oldest warrior caste of the Council, bred from the bones of dead stars and baptized in gravity wells. No species feared them more. No species had ever survived a direct Varn enforcement operation without complete subjugation. 34 dreadnoughts emerged near Terran space, massing at the edge of the Kuiper perimeter. Their commander, First Warlord Drexiskai, transmitted a final warning. "You will comply or be erased. This is not a negotiation." No response. Drexis grinned. Silence was surrender. He issued deployment protocols. In 7 minutes, half of his command fleet lost navigational control. Trajectory maps glitched. Sleep cycles randomized. Combat AI began referencing outdated cultural flags, Terran ones. Confused crew demanded clarification. Within 12 minutes, dreadnoughts began rerouting to coordinates that didn't exist. No jamming. No virus. Just chaos, precise and invisible. On Dreadnought Vex 12, Captain Lorica woke screaming, eyes wide and frothing, babbling phrases in extinct Earth dialects. He hadn't studied Terran culture. He couldn't have. Drexus demanded an explanation from his PSYOP team. They offered none. All psychic safeguards had been breached, but not attacked. Bypassed. Or worse, invited. From the darkness of space, Earth finally responded. Not with a fleet. Not with fire. Just a signal. A voice. Valor Rain. You thought force was our language. You were wrong. Force is your comfort zone. Ours is instability. Drexus sparked for weapons lock. Targeting systems flickered. Shields reversed. The warships began broadcasting civilian distress signals in Terran Morse code, automatically. The Varn were now broadcasting a cry for help, in a dead human language. Rain's voice again. Tell me, Warlord, what's more terrifying than an enemy you can't shoot? Drexus roared. You coward! Face me! Already did, Rain said. 10 years ago. During the Boron siege. I was the one who let your planet live. You were too busy counting corpses to check who stopped the third strike. You owe me your capital. Drexus froze. Rain continued. But that's the thing about humans, Drexus. We don't brag about survival. We engineer consequences. The fleet began to turn, on its own. Not towards Earth. Away from it. Back to the core systems. Fleet AI reported a new threat vector. Existential instability. Source, internal morale collapse. Every system began reading Earth as neutral. Not enemy. Not ally. Just undefined. The Council called an emergency meeting. Have they launched any ships? Asked the Drenach Chancellor. No, the analyst replied. Any weapons fired? None. Any cyber attacks? Not by our definitions. Then why are we losing? Silence. Then one word. Because they stopped playing. From deep orbit above Titan, the Terran Broadcast Center activated Project Scorch Mirror fully. This time, no speeches. Just mirrors. Council fleets everywhere began receiving echoes of their own transmissions, looped and distorted until every ship heard its own voice doubting orders. AI units refused chain of command hierarchies. Code leaked into decision nodes, rerouting protocols through emotionally weighted data, human data. A Valkyr commander received orders to strike Earth. Her ship's on-board assistant asked, Why? Not to challenge. Just to ask. She answered, Because they defied the Council. The AI paused. Then responded, But wasn't that your dream too? She never gave the launch order. Elsewhere, political systems once kept in check by Terran advisors began collapsing inward. On Yeltron 4, a rebellion broke out, led by an education algorithm humanity had coded for conflict mediation. It had rewritten itself. Rain's message played again, this time embedded in the Council's own broadcasts. You invited us to sit at your table. Then you tried to shave off our edges. You forgot one thing. We like the edges. We sharpened them. The spiral net, galactic communications backbone, began to bend. Not break. Just bend. Filters failed. Raw emotion leaked into interspecies diplomacy. What once had been sanitized, balanced, even forced through empathy protocols, now pulsed with chaotic nuance. One message from a Terran colony broke through. You never wanted peace. You wanted a mirror. Another. We never fit your mold. We were never meant to. A final one, from Valor. You built a civilization allergic to difference. We were the cure. And now you're having a reaction. In the council hall, the Nithari speaker stood trembling. They're not attacking. They're unbuilding us. The Molari representative wept. We made them part of us. Now they're making us remember who we were without them. No one dared respond. In that moment, every council species finally understood. Humanity's absence wasn't passive. It was pressure. The kind that cracked empires. The council sent one last demand, a summons for Valor Rain to return and explain Earth's actions. He did. One message. No encryption. No Attached was an audio file. Not a threat. A recording. Laughter. Not derisive. Not cruel. Just human. Laughter in the dark. The council chamber had changed. Once, it thrummed with synchronized intent, each delegate connected through shared psychic resonance, guided by harmony, cloaked in superiority. Now it echoed with static and fear. Delegates stared across the great spiral table with guarded expressions, their collective unity fractured, each one wondering who would defect next. The silence broke when the speaker's voice faltered into the open channel. He agreed to return. Alone. They didn't believe it until the doors hissed. No entourage. No weapons. No army. Just Valor Rain, black-clad, calm, and perfectly aware of the fear behind every eye. He walked straight to the center, stopping at the dead heart of their failed illusion. The Drenach Chancellor stood first. You destabilized over 40% of our systems. You are responsible for the fall of interplanetary cohesion. Valor raised a brow. You mean the illusion of cohesion. You unleashed ideological anarchy. No, he replied evenly. We stopped buffering your contradictions. The Molari delegate leaned forward, voice trembling. What do you want, Rain? Why return? Valor reached into his coat and placed something on the table. It was not a weapon. It was a child's toy. Burned at the edges. A crude Terran artifact. There was a colony, he said. Outer ring. Unaligned. Peaceful. Didn't believe in galactic integration. You called them isolationist. You sent a compliance drone fleet. Said it was surgical. He met every eye in the room. It wasn't. You burned everything. And no one said a word? The toy sat between them like a forgotten corpse. That was 12 years ago. The Valkyr delegate snapped. It was deemed a necessary pacification. And now, Valor said, you're choking on your own justification. The Zalari leaned forward, a crystalline tremble in her voice. You knew this would happen. We ran the simulations. Dozens. Centuries ahead. The only variable was how long it would take for you to collapse under your own ideology. Why not warn us? The Kelshwan asked. We did, Valor said. Every disagreement. Every refusal. Every silence. You called it aggression. The chamber fell quiet. He moved forward, slowly, resting one gloved hand on the spiral table's edge. You called Earth dangerous because we didn't think like you. But you never realized that was the point. We evolved in contradiction. We survived by questioning. We learned through failure. You tried to breed that out of us. And when we wouldn't bend, you decided to manage us instead. You believe you're better, the speaker said bitterly. Valor shook his head. No. Just different. But difference is what your council was never built to handle. You caused war. The Drenach spat. No. We removed our peacekeepers. You caused war. We just stopped cleaning it up. The room was stone. You think we need your structure? The Valkyr growled. Without us, your systems will rot. Valor smiled. Your systems are rotting with you still in them. He pressed a finger to the table's surface. A projection bloomed, images of defecting worlds. Civilizations once tightly bound to council regulation now operating autonomously. Not perfectly. Not cleanly. But alive. Free. Communicating directly. Trading without protocol. Fighting, resolving, growing. They're surviving, the Zalari whispered. They're adapting, Valor corrected. They remembered how. You forgot. Because you tried to erase struggle. And what is it you want now? The speaker asked finally. Valor looked up. Nothing. Confusion rippled. You're not here to make demands? No, he said. I'm here to offer a choice. He let that settle. You can dissolve the council. Not in shame. In acceptance. As an act of progress. Rewrite the foundation. Accept chaos. Allow divergence. Or you can wait. Until every system that once obeyed you learns they never needed to. And if we choose neither? Vala's voice cooled. Then you become irrelevant. History won't even call you tyrants. Just placeholders. The room pulsed with tension. The speaker's voice was quiet. If we stand down, Earth becomes the center of the galaxy. No, Valor said. We'll be a spark. Not a throne. And if we refuse, then we vanish again. And this time, you won't even hear the silence. The Zalari spoke, eyes glowing with old pain. We wanted peace. You wanted predictability, Valor said. You called it peace. But peace is messy. It's loud. It's earned through fire, not compliance. The toy on the table began to hum. A child's recording, static-laced, broken, played 2 words. Still here. Valor didn't look down. He turned. He walked to the doors. He paused. You were never the center. Just a circle drawn in chalk, hoping the universe would obey. The doors opened. His voice was the last thing they heard. Decide quickly. Gravity doesn't wait for consensus. And then he was gone. The council did not disband that day. Not officially. Not ceremonially. No votes were cast. No decrees issued. But the spiral lost its spin. In the hours after Commander Valor Rain's final words echoed through the chamber, the first cracks became chasms. The Kelshwan withdrew their fleets from border enforcement. The Zalari ceased all participation in empathic synchronization rituals. The Vernari dissolved their intelligence-sharing networks with a single transmission. They were right. We were never listening. The Nithri speaker convened what she called a last effort at order. Only 8 species attended. 37 ignored the call entirely. 5 transmitted back a single symbol, a burning spiral dissolving into static. The dissolution was not war. It was entropy in motion. Diplomatic hubs once protected by consensus now braced for insurgencies. Whole worlds that had depended on council approval to breathe began deciding they no longer needed permission. Out among the exiled colonies, a transmission looped across every former enforcement beacon. Valor Rain's voice, recorded live. You don't have to obey them anymore. The rules were only real because we all pretended. Stop pretending. That single phrase, stop pretending, became a banner across 1,000 fractured systems. Printed on walls. Whispered across corridors. Written in blood, in code, in light. The spiral table still stood, but no one sat at it. In the underground channels once reserved for black market trade, a new network began to pulse. The spiral order. It wasn't Terran. It wasn't human-run. But Earth had lit the fire. The blueprints spread quietly, open communication systems that bypassed council frequencies, AI seed algorithms capable of rewriting control logic, quantum empathy cores that could process emotion without telepathy. No one claimed credit. Earth said nothing. That silence spoke louder than anything. And then came the final proof, a council distress beacon sent from Vex Delta, an outer system lost to rebellion. The beacon pleaded for peacekeeping support. No one responded. But the signal was intercepted. A single, untraceable human ship arrived. Not military. Civilian hull. The rebellion stopped overnight. Not because they were conquered, but because they were heard. The human delegate didn't offer rules. He offered memory. Stories of Earth's own collapses. Empires that had risen and eaten themselves. Civil wars. Revolutions. Hope earned through ash. The people of Vex Delta laid down their arms. Not because they were controlled, but because, for the first time, someone had respected their chaos enough to not intervene. The council recorded the event. The data was clear. Earth hadn't come to rule. It had come to show what ruling wasn't. In secret, several council leaders met through encrypted quantum nodes. They spoke quietly, without translators. The speaker was not invited. The Drenach chancellor broke the silence. If we dissolve the council, what rises in its place? The Zalari responded. Nothing that calls itself a council. And Earth? The Valkyr asked. They don't want a crown. They want a circle that tolerates fire. One by one, they agreed. The next day, the Council deactivated its central hub. The spiral table dimmed. The galaxy exhaled. In a Terran command station buried beneath Europa's oceans, Valor Rain listened to the silent confirmations arriving one by one. System by system. No parades. No declarations. Just lights turning off. Old lights. Ancient ones. A voice crackled through secure channel. Is it over? No, he replied. It's finally begun. What do we call it now? He looked at the data stream. The spiral had cracked, but something new was forming in its place. Not lines. Not systems. Paths. Free, unstable, living paths. Let's not name it, Valor said. Let them. Back across the void, in the ruins of the council chamber, a child stood with her mother. She had no memory of the old peace. Only stories of fear and obedience. She touched the cold stone of the spiral table and whispered the phrase etched into its side. Still here. And so was Earth. Not as a ruler. As the first one who walked away, and proved that peace wasn't about agreement. It was about having the strength to disagree, and still not destroy. The galaxy would remember. Not because of war. But because humanity, born in fire and chaos, had taught the stars how to walk through both, and not come out clean, but come out better.